I've got stuff, yeah. All right.
So you get these great colors. And so this is what we call umba salad.
They say that cities formed when people decided to cook together. Cooking is alchemy. It's molded with hands and time and heat. And to me, there's a lot of similarities formally, with sculpture. Iraqi heritage to me was almost invisible because it was so normal. It was what I was growing up in. It was what my grandparents insisted on keeping alive. Even though they were forced to leave Iraq, they were heartbroken to leave. It was what defined them as Arab Jews. In the evening of January 17th, 1991, I remember sitting at the television while having dinner, watching for the first time in our lives real-time images of Iraq, of buildings that my brothers and I would never get to visit. And so suddenly I realized that the place that my grandparents fled to was destroying the place that they fled from. And that's when I really started to recognize what my life's work was going to be about. When I was in high school, I was exhibiting a drawing in the high school art show, and the dean of my high school, Peter DiFilippo, came to me during the exhibit and told me that I had the drawings of a sculptor. And he said that he was actually a stone carver and would I be interested in being his apprentice. It remains to date the material that I derive the most pleasure from working with. And so the first sculpture that I did at that age of 15 was a tribute to the Bamiyan Buddhas. The Hazara people that live in Bamiyan were also massacred in the aftermath. And I started to work with the same travertine that the Bamiyan Buddhas had been made from as a way of taking one cultural collapse to address another cultural destruction that happened during World War II with the burning of books. My parents had told me, the child of post-Holocaust Jews, that when books burn, people burn.
And then he brought some of the stone from the valley to Europe and worked with master stone carvers to reproduce the shapes of books that had been burnt in Europe during World War II. So it's a sort of a circle, a kind of ecology of materials.
How do you move forward without denying the past?
He works with issues and questions which are very timely, making compelling, potent works that speak both to his own personal history and to our times. Perhaps we see this very clearly in the fourth plinth, which is a work made on a pedestal in Trafalgar Square, a reference to and a version of an Assyrian bull, both witty and hard-hitting.
We live in a fragmented world, and Michael is an artist who deals with healing. He deals with the recovery of material that has been destroyed or lost.
A project of mine like Dull Roar the centerpiece of which is a recreation of one of the Pruitt-Igoe housing structures that was demolished in 1972, rising and falling, showing that the racial tensions that allowed for it to be destroyed, that rising and falling still happens today. It is one of those things where I recognize provenance again as being really important. The fact that the rubble of Pruitt-Igoe served as the foundation landfill for mansions to be built on top, that tells the whole story. And so we're reuniting this panel that was left behind in Iraq and was subsequently destroyed by ISIS in 2015 with the head that was removed from it in the mid-1800s.
These panels come from the Northwest Palace of Nimrud, one of the rooms destroyed by ISIS. They're not intended to fool anyone, and they're made from materials that are transient, that we would normally throw away.
The materials we're using to recreate the artifacts and also these panels are the packaging of Middle Eastern foodstuffs.
Green tea, for example. Along here are sardines.
The places we go to source the materials are actually grocers, emigres, and refugees that have fled the north of Iraq. My own curiosities that I developed throughout my life, whether it was the Beatles and the memorabilia around the band and wanting to know every little thing, would soon kind of train my brain with anything that I was interested in. And so a lot of the works that I do, I think you could look at them and say that in addition to making things, I also build collections. And so there's always a kind of continuous layering, one on top of the other, whether it's Middle Eastern food packaging or even pulling together objects that I feel tell a story. I'm pulling these things together, and that requires an immersive curiosity. It requires a certain amount of obsession.
Mother been able to return to, or any of your family?
No, we've never been back. In fact, you know, it's one of those things that I always find interesting in my work is that people have always thought that I have.
Right.
And there's something about that distance and being able to kind of have an intimate relationship with Iraq not being there that kind of speaks to, you know, the very real current condition. But I'm starting to get a lot of invitations, you know, to do something there, and so I'm thinking about what that would mean. Amba is a pickled mango. Amb in Urdu means mango, and ended up on every Iraqi table and as a condiment in every Iraqi sandwich. That it was very much a part of, like, you know, the spice roads, but also British colonialism. And apparently a bottle of this was found in the little apartment refrigerator that Saddam Hussein had when they captured him in Iraq. When you think about food, the sensory experience is immense because you end up with a certain kind of DNA that comes out of the pots and the pans that, you know, has the smells of home, it has the colors, and of course the taste, and it becomes something that, for me, as a sculptor, I'm very interested in because it has that physical presence, not only in the way that it's made, in the way that it appears, but then also in the way that it's consumed, that there's a whole sort of like level of emotional communion that happens between the person and the object.
You speak Arabic?
شوي من وين؟
We are from Syria.
Syria. It's okay?
Okay.
Or smaller?
It's a little bit here.
A little smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
عاشت ايدك.
عاشت ايدك.
I look back on that day in February, almost with having this meaning that we didn't know what it was going to have at the time.
Such an incredible time cooking for people from the Iraqi, the Syrian, the Afghanistan communities, and at Farm, all the veterans that showed up.
What we see here today is incredible, and what we see in front of us is a city.
His, therefore, is a post-museum art. His objects are often damaged, broken, stolen, or burnt goods. His goal seems to be to find ways by which their embedded meaningfulness may emerge and flourish again. And his proposition is that this can happen only if we work together with others.
The work that we're doing right now that we don't know that we're doing is hopefully enzymatic work. In this moment, maybe it's like we're spoiled milk, but eventually we're going to be cheese,
That yeast that's gonna make the bread even better.
Right. Or wine, right?
Yeah.